Responsively, that is Ezekiel chapter 33. We'll be reading verses 1 through 6. Ezekiel chapter 33, verses 1 through 6, and I'll begin at verse 1. It says, "Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, if when he seeth the sword come upon the land, he blow the trumpet and warn the people. He heard the sound of the trumpet and took not warning. His blood shall be upon him. But he that taketh warning shall deliver his soul." Verse 6 altogether. "But if the watchman see the sword come, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity. But his blood will I require at the watchman's hand." May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of his word.
Good afternoon. Happy Sabbath. Let's start with a word of prayer. Father, which art in heaven, we come before you again. I ask, Lord, that as I begin this sermon, Lord, and speak these words, Lord, that these words may touch the hearts of the people here, Lord, and that what is being said, Lord, will be reflected of you, Lord, and that people may see you and not me, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. The genesis of my sermon today, where the Watchmen of the church, is basically from Facebook. Earlier this year, I decided not to get into more religious debates on Facebook because it was such a time-consuming process. You know, you're always answering questions, somebody do a post, and they do a post, and you do a post, and they do a post, and next thing you know, it's 3 weeks, and you're still debating. Spending in on and responding to posts, and in the end realizing that some people wasn't going to change their mind no matter what it said. So as I continued to look at posts, I wouldn't engage no matter how egregious the errors that I was seeing. It was as if the devil himself was baiting me and tempting me to respond to things that were being posted on Facebook. Unfortunately, the errors being presented out on Facebook are from our own leadership within the Adventist Church on various things. The leadership in the church has sadly taken on the identity of the world and has cast aside the truths and doctrines of the church to be popular with other denominations in the world. So one of the reasons I stopped doing the whole Facebook debate was the whole women's ordination thing a couple of years ago. I think I spent months on end on Facebook debating that issue, and in the end, it was just like, as long as I put something out there, somebody else was going to put something else out there. And it was like a back and forth just to kind of keep me engaged and not doing what I need to be doing. So in the end, I just decided not to just respond to Facebook debates. But as soon as you do that, then you see even more egregious errors out there. And you're just like, man, I really need to respond to this. But then you remember how things will go if you respond to it. So it's kind of hard. It's hard, but I did ignore it. So the first quote I want to talk to is from the Acts of Apostles. And she says, "Christ's ministers are the spiritual guardians of the people entrusted to their care. Their work has been likened to that of watchmen. In ancient times, sentinels were often stationed on the walls of cities, where from points of vantage they could overlook important posts to be guarded and give warning of the approach of an enemy. Upon their faithfulness depended the safety of all within." At stated intervals, they were required to call to one another to make sure that all were awake and that no harm had befallen any. The cry of good cheer or of warning was borne from one to another, each repeating the call till it echoed around the city. And that's Acts of Apostles, page 360. So it's very clear that Sister White is making a comparison between the ministers of the church and the duties of a watchman. So what does a watchman do and why are they important? The primary duty of a watchman was to sound a warning if an enemy approached the city or gates. If a watchman didn't do their duty, then it could be overrun by the enemy. So a classic example of this is in Daniel chapter 3 with Belshazzar. You know, he had the party going on within the city, and he was not paying attention. Well, he wasn't his job, but the watchmen were not paying attention because the watchmen were also engaged within the partying, and to the point where the gates of the city were open. So if we go to Isaiah 45:1 right quick, because this was kind of prophesied, I think it was 150 years in advance, if I'm not mistaken. So Isaiah 45. And verse 1. Thus said the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two leave gates, and the gates shall not be shut. So within Belshazzar, what happened was Cyrus diverted the river that surrounded Babylon to the point where you can walk in on the riverbed. If the leave gates were shut, they would never gotten into the city. But the leave gates were open because the watchmen weren't doing their duty. And even if the leave gates were open, there were still some inner gates that should have been shut also, and those gates were open also. So as you can see, because the watchmen weren't paying attention and weren't doing their duties, an army was able to come in and overthrow Babylon, and that city was destroyed. Ministers of the church today are the watchmen of the church. They should guard the church against error and compromise that is trying to creep into our churches. Sadly, ministers of the church today allow any and everything into our church. So instead of protecting and guarding the church's fortified position, the ministers of today are leaving the leave gates open to the churches. So instead of the devil having to fight his way into our churches, he can just stroll right in to cause havoc, chaos, and introduce errors. So let's go to Ezekiel 3 and verse 17 through 21. Again, Ezekiel chapter 3. And we're going to read verses 17 through 21. Ezekiel 3, verses 17 to 21. And it says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at thine hand. Yet if thou warn the wicked, and he turn not from his wickedness, nor from his wicked way, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul. And again, when a righteous man doth turn from his righteousness and commit iniquity, and I lay a stumbling block before him, and he shall die, because thou hast not given him warning, he shall die in his sin, and his righteousness which has been done shall not be remembered, but his blood will I require at thine hand. Nevertheless, if thou warn the righteous man that the righteous sin not, he doth not sin, he shall surely live, because he is warned. Also thou hast delivered thy soul. So it's very clear that we are supposed, as ministers and leaders of the church, we're supposed to give warning to anything that we see as wrong, anything that we see that is wicked. From there, it's up to that person to decide if they're going to heed the watchman's warning or they can continue in their sin. But if you do not give that warning, the Lord is very clear that he will hold their blood at your hands. So it's very clear that scriptures make it known that the watchman is supposed to give warning to the people and give clear direction on what is right and what is wrong. So the responsibility wasn't just given to anybody, but to people who would follow through with these duties. Let's read another quote from the Spirit of Prophecy from Christian leadership. And it says, "Not boys, but men. There must be, in these conferences, not children, but men who will move understandingly and bear burdens, letting their voice be heard above the voices of the unfaithful who present objections, doubts, and criticism. Great interests are not to be managed by children. An undeveloped Christian, dwarfed in religious growth, destitute of wisdom from above, is unprepared to meet the fierce conflicts through which the church is often called to pass. I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day or night, unless the minister shall fiercely declare the whole truth, unless he shall have an eye single to the glory of God, and shall work upon the direction of the great captain of his salvation, unless he shall move to the front, irrespective of censure and uncontaminated by applause, he will be accounted an unfaithful watchman." And that is from Christian Leadership, page 73. So it's very clear that the people are supposed to be, it's very clear that the people that are supposed to be leading us should be of a moral character and have a certain amount of backbone to withstand all the pressures, criticism, arguments, and temptation that will come a person in a leadership position. This type of person wouldn't succumb to the peer pressures of the world and wanting to belong, but this person would stand by and uphold the pillars of our faith within our church, which is the state of the dead, the health message, the sanctuary message, righteousness by faith, victory over sin, and wouldn't be afraid to preach on prophecy, wouldn't deny the three angels' message found in Revelation 14, 6 through 12, and most definitely would stand by Ellen White and the Spirit of Prophecies. It makes no sense when other denominations bring up Sister White and the Spirit of Prophecies that our ministers and our leaders seem like they're running for cover and they don't know how to answer that question. We understand that Sister White's writing is a lesser light to the Bible, but we shouldn't be running from it or denying it. To me, because when you go to other denominations and when they talk to you about their faith, they have no problem saying, well, we got a prophet in our church and he comes every week, or we got a prophetess in our church and she comes every week and give us guidance and all that stuff. But when they bring up Sister White, we run it for cover. And the problem with that is if you're not standing up for her, then to an outside person, it looks like, well, if you're not standing up by her stuff, then what else is wrong in your denomination? Why don't you believe in her? Why don't you believe in her writings? She helped y'all found the church. But so to them, an outsider will be like, okay, if you're having trouble standing by her, what else in your church you don't believe in? And that becomes a problem. So we need to be careful about, we balance that statement saying, yes, we have a prophet. Her name is Sister White. We believe in her writings. We also understand about what is said in the Spirit of Prophecy, we can validate in the Bible. And if you have any questions about what is said or something, let us know, and we can find out, or I can show you in the Bible itself where that is valid in the Bible. We need to stop running from that question. We tend to run from that too much. The problem that we have within our church is that we have lost the faith in what we believe and what we stand for. So now our ministers are out there copying what other churches are doing on Sunday, hoping that this will grow their church membership. The truths within our church are foundational and fundamental, and it has a proven track record. And when you have found something that has a proven track record, you embrace it. You don't run from it. So the analogy I'm going to use is in basketball. A couple of years ago was each year in the NBA, there's a free agency period where you can sign free agents. That free agency period starts at midnight. So at midnight on a certain day, you can start bringing in people, or you can go to somebody's house, player's house, or whatever, and you can try to recruit these players to sign on your team. Well, 2 years ago, the most popular person was LaMarcus Aldridge. Coach I'm going to talk about this from the San Antonio Spurs called Greg Popovich. I asked him in an interview like a day before free agency, so what are you going to do? You're going to go, whose house you going to be at midnight? You're going to have a jet come, and are you going to see LaMarcus, or you're going to try to get him to sign? He said, at midnight, I'm going to be in my bed asleep. And he was like, well, you don't think LaMarcus is going to be upset that you're not at his house at midnight or trying to fly him or trying to pitch him? He said, listen, if LaMarcus is going to be upset that I'm not at his house at midnight, then I don't want him on my team. So when you understand, Greg Popovich has a system that he runs in San Antonio. He's been to six NBA finals. He has won 5 NBA championships. Been coaching for 20 years, and out of those 20 years, he only missed the playoffs once. So he has a proven system, from David Robinson to Tim Duncan. You got Tony Parker. There's a number of people that has been in his system, and he still won with his system. So even Tim Duncan's his nickname is the Big Fundamental. So his offense is his system of his offensive defense is very fundamental to basketball. So you can switch in players in and out, and that system still goes. So when you have something that has a proven track record, then you don't worry about who's going to be on your team or what other teams are doing, because you already won 5 championships. You know your system works. There's no need to be trying to duplicate what somebody else is doing, because what somebody else is doing hasn't matched what you have done already. So you stay with what you know. So on the flip side of that, we have Kobe Bryant. Had all the athleticism we have in the world, scoring a bunch of points, taking a billion shots, but he never won a championship. Phil Jackson comes along with the triangle offense, again, fundamental basketball. He wins 5 championships with Phil Jackson. But he was always at odds with Phil Jackson, but he won 5 championships with him. Once Phil left, Kobe never won another championship in his career. So again, Phil Jackson, well, from Texas winners to triangle offense, very fundamental basketball. I won 6 with Michael Jordan, considered the greatest player of all time. Who are you to tell me you're not going to run my offense? And one year he did step away. He didn't win anything, and then Phil came back and he won 2 more championships with him. So we understand that. So when you look at stuff, when you got a proven track record, then there's no need to look at other things. So as an Adventist church, we have proven stuff. So why are we looking at other denominations for how we should run a church or how should we build a church? I mean, the health message is fundamental. That's proven. I mean, you're talking about stuff 150 years ago, but yet, do we listen to the health message today? Are we preaching the health message? Are we saying anything about that? Prophecy. Proven track record within the Adventist church that we know how to interpret prophecy. But yeah, when's the last time you heard a prophecy sermon? When was the last time you heard prophecy interpreted right by the current ministers of today? So we have proven track record, so there's no need for us to go out and imitate what a Pentecostal church is doing. There's no need for that. But yeah, if you look at our churches today, what are we doing? A lot of praise and worship service within Adventist. And Sister White said there's nothing wrong with praise and worship, but she said a few things about that. First, it should be towards the beginning of the service, not right before the preacher comes up. Second, she says the songs need to be reverent, right? So it's supposed to be reverent. It's not supposed to be all excitement and stuff like that. And third, she said, whatever songs you do, everybody's supposed to be singing them. It shouldn't be entertainment up here. We got 5 or 6 people doing praise and worship, and everybody is whatever. But what do we do in Adventist churches? We got a lot of praise and worship, a lot of jumping around, whatever we want to have you. And my thing is, as Adventists, why are we taking that and incorporating it into the church, especially when we won't even do it right? I mean, there was an example. We was watching TV. It was a while ago. And I told my wife, I said, you need to come down here and see this. It was on the Word Network. And it was a Pentecostal non-denominational church, and they was doing praise and worship. They was going an hour and a half straight, just rolling, just one after another, just all jumping all over the place. And I'm like, man, so as they're going off the air, hour and a half straight now, they're going. They was like, okay, we're off the air. Okay, now we can go to work. So I'm just like, I mean, after an hour and a half, y'all just now hitting y'all stride as far as praise and worship. You can take the most liberal Adventist church in our denomination. You're not going to be able to praise and worship for an hour and a half. An hour and a half, you'll be in the corner somewhere in the fetal position because you say, I can't do it anymore. It's just too much. There's too much. There's certain things that they will do that even the most liberal Adventists won't do. So we should not be interpreting or taking from their service, incorporating into our service, thinking that is what's going to hold people in the church. So what happens if the praise and worship team leaves? You remember, is your tie to the church because of what is being preached there, or is it tied to who's doing praise and worship? If the praise and worship team is only doing praise and worship 2 Sabbaths out of the month, that means the other 2 Sabbaths you're not going to be here. You're going to be at somebody else's church praise and worshiping because that's why you come to church for. We come to church to worship God and hear truth and have us, point out things that we need to work on. We don't come to church to be entertained. So we need to be very careful about how we are interpreting and how we bring in stuff into the church. And as Watchmen of the church, we need to be cognizant of that and be able to stop that stuff before it gets in there. Because a lot of times, I think an elder could have a question about should drums be in the church or not be in the church. And the answer, he had a very good answer. He said, it's not so much about drums, how you play the drums. The problem is, once they get into the church, they're hard to control. So it's not even a matter about evil versus evil, not evil, because you got that debate going on. It's like once you get them in, once they're in the church, they become hard to control. So that was his reason for not having drums in the church. So we need to be cognizant of that and be cognizant of the things trying to come in. And as watchmen of the church, we need to be vigilant about recognize error and to make sure error doesn't get into the church. Next quote from the retirement years. She says, the messages that have received from heaven are true and faithful. When one man strives to bring in new theories, which are not the truth, the ministers of God should bear clear warning against these theories, pointing out where, if received, they will lead the people of God. Those who have received the light or present truth should not be easily deceived and readily led from the true path into strange paths. The watchmen are to be wide awake to discern the outcome of all specious reasoning, for serious errors will be brought in to lead the people of God astray. Next thing I want to talk about, something happened last week on Facebook. I'm friends with somebody, I'm not going to say the name or anything, but from my understanding, this was not the sermon, but this was what was played during the 11 o'clock service. I guess this church had played like a motivational video from Will Smith, and they played it during the service during the 11 o'clock hour. And it was like a 5 or 6, I think it was like a 5, maybe almost a 10-minute video. I saw it and I was like, he was doing something on his wall, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, yeah, okay. I really didn't pay attention to it too much, and then it kept going on during the week. So I was like, okay, let me look at the video. And the videos are clips of like 30-second clips of interviews that he has done throughout the years. And it may have been like, I don't know, it only got like halfway through the video, but like 30-second clip here, him doing the interview, giving answers to a question. There was like another 20-second clip. So I don't know if Will Smith put that video clip together or somebody else did. But the strange thing about it is I'm a Will Smith fan. I kind of like some of the things as far as how he represents himself. But during these clips, how they put these clips together, there was a certain intensity that was being said without the video. And it kind of, when you see it, you're kind of like, huh, that's interesting. What's little intense, a little tone there, a little undertone that if you're not paying attention, you will miss. So I was about halfway through the video, and I was like, okay, something ain't right. So I said, okay, I was taking my daughter to school, and I was like, I'll stop and I'll look into this later. Well, if you know anything about Will Smith, you know he's dabbled into Scientology. And then I think my wife told me, and then I think my friend told me on his Facebook page, I guess he dabbles in being an alchemist also. So when I said, well, let me look into this. And so I said, well, what's Scientology? So this is off their website. This is not me making up anything or putting any conjecture. This is straight from their website. It is developed by somebody named L. Ron Hubbard. Scientology is a religion that offers a precise path leading to a complete and certain understanding of one's true spiritual nature and one's relationship to self, family, groups, mankind, of all life forms, the material universe, the spiritual universe, and the supreme being. And I'll come back to the supreme being in a second. Scientology addresses the spirit, not the body or mind, and believes that man is more than a product of his environment or his genes. Scientology comprises a body of knowledge which extends from certain fundamental truths. Prime among these are, man is an immortal spiritual being. His experience extends well beyond a single lifetime. His capabilities are unlimited, even if not presently realized. Scientology further holds man to be basically good and that his spiritual salvation depends upon himself, his fellows, and his attainment of brotherhood within the universe. So salvation depends upon himself. Scientology is not a dogmatic religion in which one is asked to accept anything or on faith alone. On the contrary, one discovers oneself On the contrary, one discovered for oneself that the principles of Scientology are true by applying its principles and observing or experiencing the results. The ultimate goal of Scientology is true spiritual enlightenment and freedom for all. So we go back to the Supreme Being. I saw that actually that's a Euro link, so I looked at that and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I clicked on that link, and it took me something that said that their version of Supreme Being is their concept of God in the eighth dynamic. And then on that page, dynamic was highlighted as a Euro link. So I clicked on that link. It's like going down a little rabbit hole. And I get to the next page. And then it comes to saying that their concept is 8 dynamics, makes up Scientology, right? And the 8th dynamic is their concept of God. But the first dynamic, which they believe in, is self. So who had a problem with self in heaven? Lucifer looked at himself and found himself, he got enamored with himself. So it's kind of interesting. I saw this. So your first dynamic is self. So their thing is within all life, we have a basic command to survive. That's one of their main principles, we want to call it. Well, and I thought, well, survive. And I said, that's kind of interesting. So you need to think about it. Then you kind of come back to the Darwinism and survival of the fittest. That's his interpretation. That's survival of the fittest. You can have, that's the thing, and they think that's what happened that's their interpretation of humans now and Neanderthals. We out-survived the Neanderthals. That's why the Neanderthals died off. So their concept of Darwinism and is survival of the fittest. So for them to say that all life must survive or have that innate ability to survive, to me, brought me back to Darwinism and survival of the fittest, and then it goes back to evolution, and then goes further on back. So that's Scientology, and you see that straight from their site. So I didn't make up anything. So then the alchemist thing came up, and my friend had this on his site, and like I said, my wife told me about it. I never heard of this before. So did some little research. The alchemist comes from alchemy, which has origins in the Greek where kahimi, I think I said that right, meaning the art of transmuting metals. Active since ancient times, alchemists could be considered very early chemists because of their work trying to transform base metals into gold. So then there's a book out there called The Alchemist, and it's written by this guy named Paulo Coelho. So, and on my friend's page, he had this kind of like synopsis. Somebody had did like a synopsis. It only took like a paragraph, but he had like a whole page. But I just took this paragraph. So this guy gives an explanation of the book. And he says, at the same time, the book shows us that we prefer self-rule to subjection. Coelho suggests using some pretty heavy-handed pantheism, that the source of our personal legend is ourselves, our personal desires, which turn out to be the very desires of God, because all things are one. That desire may be wealth, as it is for Santiago, the person in the book, or it may be a longing for a particular person or the pursuit of a religious discipline. Whatever the desire, it is right and good, and the universe conspires to help us achieve it. There is a force, Coelho writes, that wants you to realize your personal legend, and that force is God. So this was the link, if you guys want to see it later, and it was like a whole page. Fun thing about Coelho is he's a Catholic. So when you talk about the alchemists, right, and what they believe, and you're talking about Scientology and what they believe, and this is what Will Smith this is where he'll get a lot of his principles from. And the video was kind of like a motivational video. Hey, self-work, do hard work. If you do work hard enough, you'll get over the obstacles in your life, and you'll achieve things and stuff like this. But when you get into what the alchemists and the Scientology believe, and then he get his principles from that, and I'm trying to tie this all back together, why are you showing this in the Adventist church in the sanctuary in the 11 o'clock hour when you know this is his beliefs? As a watchman, as a minister, it's your responsibility to find out what somebody's believed before you present it in church. That's your responsibility. That's not nobody else's responsibility. That's your responsibility. There are times where you may invite a preacher come in, and he may say something, and that may be the first time he said that anywhere that you have studied or seen. You do some research on the people before you let them in, And no, that's the first time I ever heard him say that anywhere. Okay, the Lord kind of wink at you on that. But when you know there's something out there, so the alchemists you may not know about, but the Scientology, everybody knows Will Smith has dabbled in Scientology. So we already know where he's kind of coming from. And on top of that, Hollywood star, I'm trying to figure out what was the purpose of showing him an 11 o'clock hour in the Adventist church, and why wasn't that pastor more informed? So this was motivational, right? So now you start to spread your spirit thinking, well, the motivational preachers are out there, and do they have this kind of same background? So the two that came to my mind were Joel Osteen. Does he value this, or does he get his principles from this? What's the other, I forgot her name, it slipped my mind right now. Joyce Myers. Does she believe this? All right, is her principles is rooted in this stuff? I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of Adventists who listen to Joyce Myers and Joel Osteen. I know plenty of them that say, hey, I listen to his stuff every week. I'm like, really? He doesn't say it. First of all, he don't even talk about anything spiritual at all. So I'm figuring out what purpose do you have listening to Joel Osteen other than motivational type stuff? You shouldn't get we need to be paying attention to what we're listening to. We have to be more attuned to what we're seeing and what we're watching, because it's not about trying to find fault with people, because they'll say that sometimes, oh, you should try to find fault with somebody. It's not about trying to find fault. It's just making sure what they're saying is truth, and they're not trying to slip in some kind of error with that. So I got a couple of scriptures dealing with knowledge and stuff like that. So 2 Timothy 2:15, it says, study to show yourself thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Next is Hosea 4:6 and 7. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. That thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame. Proverbs 4:2. For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. And in Proverbs 5:3-4, for the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. So when we take this last verse here, and you think more of a prophetic typology, we know a woman represents a church and prophecy. So now if you think about it that way, you can say, for the lips of a strange church drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. So now when you take that strange woman and now change it to a strange church, how many churches we got people watching on TV, sounds good, tastes good as honeycomb, going down smooth as oil, but at the end of the day, it's bitter. So you got a lot of people in these churches, prosperity churches, sounds good, goes down good. You give all your money to the preacher, and at the end of the month, you can't pay rent. So it sounds good, but at the end of the month, no rent to pay, no food in the house, is bitter, and is sharp as a two-edged sword. So we need to think about these things as we deal with being a watchman in the church. Some who will occupy the position of watchmen to warn the people of danger have given up their watch and recline at ease. They are unfaithful sentinels. They remain inactive while their wily foe enters the fort and work successfully by their side to tear down what God has commanded to be built up. They see that Satan is deceiving the inexperienced and unsuspecting, yet they take it all quietly, as though they had no special interest, as though these things did not concern them. So these are the unfaithful watchmen. They apprehend no special danger. They see no cause to raise alarm. To them, everything seems to be going well. And they see no necessity of raising the faithful trumpet notes of warning, which they hear borne by the plain testimonies, to show the people their transgression and the house of Israel their sins. These reproofs and warnings disturb the quiet of these sleepy, ease-loving sentinels, and they are not pleased. They say in their hearts, if not in their words, this is all uncalled for. It's too severe. It's too harsh. These men Now, these men here are the faithful watchmen. These men are unnecessarily disturbed and excited and seem unwilling to give us any rest or quietude. Ye take too much upon you, saying all the congregation are holy, every one of them. They are not willing that we should have any comfort, peace, or happiness. And these are the unfaithful watchmen complaining. It is active labor, toil, and unceasing vigilance alone which will satisfy these unreasonable, hard to be suited watchmen, the faithful ones. So now the unfaithful watchmen are saying, why don't they prophesy smooth things and cry peace, peace? Then everything will move on smoothly. How much of that is going on in our churches today? How many people will stand up and say, this is not right? And then you got people complaining, saying, hey, why don't you just be quiet and stop stop disturbing the peace, stop disturbing the flow of things. We got a good thing going on here. Why are you trying to destroy it? Why are you trying to mess all that up, what we got going on? So we can see that a lot of this is going on in the church. So the question becomes then, as members of a church, how are we supposed to respond to something like that? And I would like for y'all to turn to Daniel chapter 3, verses 10 through 18. Daniel chapter 3, verses 10 through 18. So this is dealing with the three Hebrew boys. And as we know, to give a quick synopsis, this is dealing with the idol that was on the plains of Dura that Nebuchadnezzar had built. It was all solid gold. In chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And in the dream, he had a head of gold, arms and chest of silver, belly of brass, legs of iron, and the feet were mixed with iron and clay. So he represented different countries that would succeed the king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar was like, well, I want my kingdom to last forever. So he built a statue of all gold because he represented the head of gold, and that's in the dream that Daniel interpreted. So he goes on, he builds this idol, the statue in the plains of Dura, which is kind of Iraq now. And he said, and we still pick it up in verse 10, and it says, O king, thou, O king, has made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever falleth not down and worship that beast and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, and ye fall down and worship the image which I have made, well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hands, O king. But if not, be it known unto you, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So their response to the king was, if they don't bow down to this image at the sound of the music, I'm going to throw you in the fiery furnace. And their response was, O king, our God can save us if he chooses to. But if he chooses not to, we're still not going to serve your God. And that's need to be our mindset in these last days. The Lord may save you from persecution or ridicule or whatever it may be, or he may not, and you may have to go through that. But our response to that situation shouldn't be, will the Lord save me or not? Our response should be, no matter what, I'm not going to do it. So we need to be of a mindset. We need to start developing a mindset that we won't bow down, we won't compromise to the things that we come up against. Because there'll be a lot of peer pressure that's going to be pushed upon us in these last days, and you're starting to see a little bit of it now. Are you going to be able to stand to that peer pressure in these days? She said, no confederacy with these opposing truths. Let the watchmen on the walls of Zion not join with those who are making an unaffected truth as it is in Christ. Let them not join the confederacy of infidelity, popery, and Protestantism, and exalting tradition above scripture, reason above revelation, and human talent above the divine influence and the vital power of godliness. That's Review and Arrow, March 24. Watchmen on the walls of Zion are to be vigilant, and sleep not day or night, but if they have not received the message from the lips of Christ, their trumpets will give an uncertain sound. Brother and sister, God calls upon you both, ministers and laypersons. Listen to his voice as speaking to you through his word. Let his truth be received into your heart, that you may be spiritualized by his living, sanctifying power. Then let the distinct message for this time be sent from watchman to watchman on the walls of Zion, as manuscript on page 152. What is the sentinel for, but to be the voice of the watchman on the walls of Zion, to sound the danger signal? We are not to cringe and beg pardon of the world for telling them the truth. We should scorn concealment, unfurl your colors to meet the case of men and angels. Let it be understood that Seventh-day Adventists can make no compromise. In your opinions of faith, there must not be the least appearance of wavering. The world has a right to know what to expect of us, and will look upon us as dishonest, as hiding our real sentiments and principles out of policy, if we carry even the semblance of being uncommitted to the popular voice as pointing out the safe way. The Comforter, the Holy Spirit, which Christ said he would send into this world, was to bear an unwavering testimony. So when we're supposed to speak truth, we're not supposed to wait till the popular crowd, so the majority comes along and says, okay, yeah, we believe in that, and then now you jump on board. You're supposed to stand for truth no matter what if you're only the 1%, then you're the only 1% saying truth. But we're supposed to stand on ground as far as what we believe in and what is truth. Let's turn to Jeremiah 12:5. It's like one of my favorite verses in the Bible, Jeremiah 12:5. If thou hast run with the footmen, and they have wearied thee, then how can thou contend with horses? And if in the land of peace, where thou trustest, they weary thee, then how wilt thou do in the swelling of Jordan? So, in this time of peace, we should be perfecting our characters. We should be, practicing the health message. There's a lot of different things we need to be doing in this time of peace. So when the swelling of the Jordan happens, we're able to do it. It's kind of like, sports. If you're not doing it in practice, you're not going to do it in a game. That's that simple. So we need to be in a habit of practicing what we believe now, so when the time of trouble comes upon us, we're able to stand. So let me give this example. One of the things we think about the time of trouble, what do we think about? Persecution, torture, and all this other stuff. And we'll get our minds wrapped around that. So we're trying to prepare ourselves for that time. Can I handle the torture? Can I do this? Not realizing that Satan, all he got to do is get you to fail, or to give up or renounce what you believe in, and he's done. In some cases, he may not have to torture you to get you to do that. So sometimes we build up this wall of defense in front of us, expecting certain things, and Satan get us from behind. So think about this. Time of trouble, you get caught, you're in jail, and they don't feed you for 15 days. Just give you just a little bit of water to keep you alive, right? So you're on the brink of starvation. Your stomach is not growling, it's talking to you. Like, I need to eat, I need something in my food, I need something in here. 15 days of starving, no food, a little bit of water. And then a guard comes down, and he had this big slice of Linda chocolate fudge cake from the Cheesecake Factory. He walks down to your jail cell, and he said this: "If you renounce the Sabbath, I'll give you this piece of cake." And I'm going to tell you, if you have not been practicing denying yourself sweets in a time of peace, there's no way in the world you're going to hold up in the swelling of the Jordan. You will fall at that point. You might think you're not going to fall, but if you haven't eaten in 15 days and you have not been in the habit of fasting from sweets on a regular basis, you're going to fall. If you've not been in the habit of fasting from beef, and they come down with a big sirloin steak, you're going to fall. Baked chicken, you're going to fall. If you've not been in the practice of denying yourself and controlling your appetite, all they got to do is come down with starve you for 15, 20 days and come down with some food, and you're going to fall. So we need to be in the habit of practicing these things now. We need to be in the habit of practicing of not eating, fasting from unhealthy foods for a time period. And he said, if you go 2 weeks without eating sweets, then next time go a month. If you go a month, try to go 2 months. If you go 2 months, try to go 6 months. You need to be in the habit of constantly doing this. So when you get in a situation like this, it's not unfamiliar territory, you can resist. But if you give in to every little thing that comes along, as far as food, you're not going to hold up. And we got to be, and I'm trying to, because I'm seeing stuff now, and it worries me that our church leadership is falling by the wayside the way that they are. You would think they would be putting up a bigger fight or resisting more, and there's just no resistance whatsoever. It's just like whatever comes in, we're going to do it. And I'm shocked at some of the stuff that's coming in our church. I'm sitting there thinking, are you serious? That really? But you get to a point where you really can't talk to church people anymore because you know better. You've had this all your life, and you're still going to do what you're going to do. And the thing we need to get prepared for is because the people who believes in, state of the dead, health message, righteousness by faith, victory over sin, they're starting to call us fundamentalists now. And if you've been paying attention to the news, they're starting to tie fundamentalists with terrorists and with terrorism. So now we need to be, are you going to buckle if somebody calls you a fundamentalist, knowing that they're tying that to terrorism now? So you scared they're going to think you're a terrorist, so are you going to change what you believe so they don't call you that? If you can't handle being called a fundamentalist now in this time of peace, what's going to happen in the time of Jordan when it swells? You're going to fall. If you can't handle being called names now, there's no way in the world you're going to handle what's to come. But yet, are we prepared for that? The Pope. Everybody's enamored with this Pope, but he's definitely tied fundamentalists to people that needs to be dealt with immediately because they're disturbing the peace. We talked that what Sister White had in the Spirit of Prophecy. Church leaders don't want fundamentalists speaking up because they're disturbing the peace, they're disturbing the flow of things of what's going on. And you got Pope Francis out front and center saying, we need, if somebody's a fundamentalist, they need to be dealt with. So now we got all that, and then all of our church leaders are falling in line, and they're believing that, and they're not standing for truth. If you stand for the Sabbath, they're gonna call you a fundamentalist. If you stand for the health message, they're gonna call you a fundamentalist. If you stand for the three angels message, they're gonna call you a fundamentalist. What are you gonna do then? Are you gonna stand and stick to your principles and stand what you believe in, or are you gonna fall and fall in line with the rest of the crowd? I'm starting to understand more and more that I really shouldn't fear the time of trouble, but I should fear the times that we're living in right now because this is the times we need to get it right. I think once if we make it to the time of trouble, I think we'll be fine. Not saying we're not going to struggle or anything, but I think our mind's going to be made up by that point that I'm not moving. I'm not moving off this. I think the time we need to be worried about it right now and trying to get ourselves together so when the time of trouble comes, we're fine. I hope everybody got a blessing from this sermon. I was trying to do it a little different way, but I was seeing stuff on Facebook that I really thought that needed to be talked about. I really believe that the leaders of our church are failing us right now. I just be honest with you. I think they're going for every winning doctrine that's being blown. And the few people that do speak out, get ostracized, get marginalized. And there's some people who do know, who don't say nothing. I was watching a clip with Deron Tinsley last night with Cofer, and he said there's pastors out there that talk to him that are still in the conference on a daily basis. They talk to him and like, yeah, we know what's going on is wrong, but we're scared to say anything right now because of family, because we're getting paid, because of how I'm gonna take care of my family. And one of the things he said is, if you're gonna get into the ministry, and the first thing you're worried about is how your family gonna get taken care of, then you're not ready for ministry. Because the Lord will take care of you. Might not be in the way you think, but the Lord will take care of you. He just asks you to go do the work, and I'll make the way. Don't worry about the way. I'll take care of the way. Just go do what I ask you to do. And a lot of these pastors are not thinking like that. They're thinking like, how I'm going to take care of my family. What they should be is I'm going to follow the Lord and let the Lord work things out. So hopefully, as we move forward in 2017, that we'll make an effort to be more solidified in what we believe, and that we'll stand on it, and that we won't be moved from it. And hopefully we'll reach the other side together. Thank you.